Inclusivity of all people of all abilities is a motto which has served Drew Stanton's well as he works to ensure that individuals with disabilities, the corporate world, and those in facility management in the greater Phoenix and Gilbert area have a non competitive and encouraging environment to reach their fullest fitness potential in his business, Team Up Fitness. He joined me this week to discuss some effective adaptive fitness practices and so much more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. So, Drew, if you are ready, we'll get started. And I want to welcome you to the show. And we're excited to talk about some fitness routines and procedures with you this afternoon. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Absolutely. So glad to be here, Kevin. Thank you.
So, Drew, I know part of a big part of Team Up Fitness is working with adaptive fitness and people with disabilities, and I know that the people you work with are trained to do this sort of work. So, can you tell me a little bit about the importance of why you wanted to work with people with adaptive fitness needs?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a that's a good question, Kevin. So, well, growing up, I had a my grandma ran a daycare, and there was one of the students there. He had special needs. He was actually in a wheelchair, and his name was Anthony. And he was just a good friend of mine growing up. So, I kind of always had a wanted to have a helping hand for people who didn't necessarily have the same path as I did, with easy access to just resources, and I just felt I've been blessed growing up. So I've always wanted to be able to help those less fortunate than me, especially physically less fortunate than me. So when I first started in my career, I got working with a few individuals with special needs, and I just saw kind of a disconnect in fitness. I feel like, your traditional fitness is very fast and very follow along and very, keep up, go, go, go. And I feel like a lot of folks with special needs need some more direction in the sense of how to control their body, how proper movements work, how to coordinate opposite arm, opposite leg, all that good stuff. And to me, I enjoy breaking down simple movements like walking into simple steps to teach people how to do it properly. So I just think the opportunity to help people that are less fortunate than me is something that I'm passionate about, and then two, the enjoyment and fulfillment I get from either developing programs that other people coach, or working one-on-one myself in those programs.
For sins, it's also important to promote endless valleys of opportunities for independence for individuals with disabilities to take control of their own fitness destiny.
Absolutely, Kevin. That's a great question. So, when I think of independence, I really like to look at, what does the average person need to do on a daily basis just to feel like they're proficient in their daily life. So we think of full limb movements. So one thing that can get neglected when we're in our everyday life is just the ability to reach overhead. So one great movement would be reaching overhead. Just this full range of motion here is something that we're not doing on the day-to-day basis. So that's a good place to start. And then in addition to that, and even if you need assistance, so we have a whole cueing process where it's like, physical cueing, hand over hand. Then we've got some modified physical, and it transitions all the way into just verbal cueing. But if you need some assistance, someone can help you, take you through that range of motion. But when we think of independence, we really want to look at joint function. So it's taking those joints to the full range of motion, specifically for the upper body, reaching, grabbing, all that good stuff. And then
Now,
when we
oh,
go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, go ahead, Kevin. You're good.
No, I was just going to say, in terms of working with people with disabilities, in terms of working with their collective unit of the people that are responsible for taking care of them, can you give some advice to caregivers who may not have a fitness background who want to help their loved ones in their fitness routines?
Absolutely. That's a great question. So the real thing we want to focus on is, how do we set caregivers up for an opportunity to really give the folks that they're caring for an opportunity to improve their fitness, and maybe they have no fitness background. So the first thing they want to do is just really focus on some morning movement. So step one would be morning movement, and that can be, if the individual's in a wheelchair, it's just taking that person preferably outside to get them some vitamin D in that sunlight, and then develop some type of morning movement plan. That can be, gripping with the fingers if that's their capabilities. It can be reaching overhead if that's their capabilities. It can be going on a 10-minute walk or jog if that's their capabilities. But I really think everyone as an individual, especially folks who are at home, and I think in my experience, people with special needs are at home more often than folks that are not. So when we're in the home, we have to make sure we get outside in the morning, for mental health and mental wellness, but two, to get that morning movement in. So we're doing two things. We're moving our body, getting our blood flow going, and then we're also getting ourselves outside, which, tons of research shows that reduces cortisol, that helps us get our vitamin D in the sunlight. So that's kind of step one. Any questions on that morning routine, Kevin, before I move on?
No, just in terms of when you talk about morning routine, do you mean when they first wake up in the morning or after they've eaten, or what do you mean by morning routine?
Yeah, that's a good question. So just in a sense, somewhere build that morning movement into your morning routine. So I'm from the understanding that everyone kind of has their own schedule and their own way of doing things. So if you as an individual want to wake up and get the morning movement first, like that's your first step in your routine, great. But if it comes after breakfast, maybe a little bit later in the morning, that's okay too. We just want to make sure sometime before, the clock strikes noon, that we're getting some type of movement in as kind of our first step of developing how a caretaker can help someone with special needs implement a fitness.
Okay, now transitioning, I know you have two other aspects of your business, and we talked about some of them before this started. I know that you've recently transitioned into helping people virtually with the online fitness classes. So, can you tell me about how important it is to get people virtually in group settings when possible, so that they can have a community of people who support them?
Absolutely, absolutely. So some of our sites here, our PE sites, our adaptive PE sites, were on-site group classes with students where they got to get together with each other. And then, of course, when schools closed, we couldn't do that anymore. So we had the opportunity, thankful of our client, PS Academy here in Gilbert, we were able to still service those students virtually. And I don't think there's anything extremely exciting about, an online PE class, but there is something extremely exciting about getting in front of your peers, getting to see those folks you haven't gotten to connect with, and being able to do that in real time, and getting to see their coach too. I think that's important. I think that's where people in my industry are still able to have work, is because there is that personal human connection. There's so much free information online, but if we can get people together in the group setting, it's going to help them connect, feel like they're a part of something, and it's going to help them continue to utilize the program that they were doing maybe in person beforehand.
Now, in terms of working with people with disabilities, could you just expand on how important it is for them to get social interactions so that their mental health is strong?
Absolutely, Kevin. So there's been a study done in relation to social interaction and connection and physical health. So one group was very physically active, ate very well, but they weren't so much connected to a community or had that social interaction. The other group had social interaction. They were part of a community, but they weren't really exercisers, and they ate okay, but they didn't care too much about nutrition. And the folks that were connected more had a much longer lifespan than the folks that were not, that were, they're exercising healthy, but they were not connected. So we're finding in fitness and in wellness that being a part of a community and being connected with people and having social interactions is extremely important. And I think as caretakers, as parents, as people working with people with special needs, it's the responsibility one of that caretaker and that professional to make sure that they're building that relationship with that individual with special needs. But then they're also getting opportunities to introduce that person to others and creating those group environments safely now with social distancing. But just to really boost morale, and I can tell you, for me personally, if I'm if I'm at home or in an office like I am today without people for days on end, and then I get around 3 or 4 people, even in a distance setting, it's just a different energy. So when you're cooped up inside all day, you do kind of get down, and that's how things like depression do start. So getting connected is extremely important, just as if not more important than exercising and eating well.
He also highlights the importance of making the corporate investment in your employees as employers to help boost their productivity and morale both at work and at home.
Yeah, absolutely. Good question, Kevin. So when I first, backing track to 2015, when I was working with my adaptive PE clients in the personal training setting at a gym, I had a big passion for working with kids. Right, that was my big passion. And as I started to do that, I realized, kids don't make decisions, parents do, and most parents are cooped up at work and stressed out all day. So I really dove into my education on the corporate fitness side and got certified and educated in how to help people in the workplace. And the reason that started is because I know if we help the adults, we can help our youth as well. But if we help our adults, that helps our society today. So I feel like I'm able to help people navigate their busy work lives, feel better, live better lives. But I'm also helping them build a foundation for their kids and my kids to have a healthy, happier future too. So it all kind of came full circle when I realized, it starts with adults.
And then my final question for you is, what lessons do you think people can take away from quarantine and sort of the importance of valuing their fitness?
Yeah, one good lesson. That's a good question. So I really think it's going outside because we don't before quarantine, before COVID, that wasn't an issue for us. Most of us would get some level of sunlight every single day just because we were in the car, we were doing whatever, getting sunlight. But now with COVID, if that wasn't a part of your daily routine, you were lacking that. And again, that's where things like, depression, lack of connection to your community, and all that stuff kind of comes up. So I think prioritizing getting outside at least once a day is extremely important takeaway for our health. It's gonna trigger more physical activity. It's gonna trigger a better mood, and then things will just start building upon that. Before you know it, you're gonna be going on 20, 30-minute walks, and you'll go from there. So yeah, I think just prioritizing getting outside once a day is super important.
Hey, Drew, I want to thank you for a few minutes and providing your insights on adaptive and corporate fitness. It was a lot of fun. We enjoyed your insight and perspective, and I want to thank you for your time this afternoon, bud.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Great stuff. Super happy I could be a part of this with you. Thanks for having me.
Have a great day, okay?
Yeah, you too. You too.